Welcome to my messy studio, everyone. My name is Mark, and I'm an artist, an art professor, and a fountain pen enthusiast. And in this video, we're going to be talking about my favorite pens of 2024. This is a kind of video that I really enjoy watching, but have never made, so this is going to be a first. This year was actually a fairly competitive year in terms of what pens entered into regular rotation, for a number of reasons. First, due to a shrinking budget, I purchased fewer pens this year, and most of those pens were in the budget category. Secondly, I usually buy pens for fairly practical reasons. So I have pens that I purchase specifically for flex writing. I have pocket pens. I have pens that I use with my Fude nibs. Sometimes I'll buy a pen because of its excellent filling system. And basically every pen I have, ideally, fits a certain role in my collection. So because those roles are already occupied, I have fewer and fewer reasons to buy new pens. Now, I do occasionally buy pens for all kinds of frivolous reasons. So here's an example. This is a Franklin Christoph antique glass Model 33, which I bought because this finish looks like an old Coke bottle. But behind it, there is still a practical reasons for me using it all the time and me buying it. It's an eye drop filler. It uses number 6 Jowo housing, which allows you to use it with all different kinds of nibs. And it currently houses an excellent Ultra Flex nib from Fountain Pen Revolution. Here's another example. This is the Opus 88 Fantasia. This is a really cute, flashy pen, kind of flashy. But again, another practical reason, it's an eye drop filler with a stopper mechanism, and it uses number 5 Jowo housing and currently houses a really excellent custom flex nib from fpnibs.com. So I do buy pens because they're pretty, because they look cool, because they have a neat filling system, but in most cases there's a practical purpose behind my purchase. So as a result, I've had less reasons to buy pens. Sometimes I'll buy them for my channel, specifically from review, but that's been happening less and less as my channel, not transitions, but the balance of my channel goes from fountain pen art material reviews to also art instruction. That said, I did buy quite a few pens this year, and some of them immediately entered heavy rotation, and I think because of the existing stiff competition, these pens deserve extra recognition. It was an extra tough year for pens becoming my favorite. So let's talk about my favorite pens of 2024. This is the Pilot Justus 95. Now, this pen is a little bit of a cheat in that I first purchased it in November of 2023 and made my review of it in December of that year. But I somehow managed to lose that pen and had to buy a new one, which arrived in January 2024. Now, I found the previous pen, so now I have two of them. I'm not sure which one this one is, but we'll assume that this is the one I bought in 2024. One of the reasons I bought it is because I have an older, fairly popular video where I review 4 Pilot Flex pens. And this Pilot Justus 95 was the only Flex pen in Pilot's offerings that I didn't have, and I was really curious about it. I wanted to compare it to my other Flex pens and re-release a video where I complete the collection. So now I have an updated video of the 5 Pilot Flex pens and a comparison of them. That's one of the reasons why I bought it. But as soon as I bought it, it immediately entered really heavy rotation and is actually one of the Pilot Flex pens that I most commonly reach for. And if you watch my YouTube channel, which I'm sure you guys do, it's featured quite a lot in my art demos. If you participate in any of my online classes, this is the pen that I use for most of my demonstrations. And if you've purchased my streaming videos, I usually use this pen for most of the demos. Why? Because it's so reliable. Now, that's not to say that the other Pilot Flex pens are not reliable. They are. But for some reason, this pen works with just about any ink on just about any paper. Whereas with the other Pilot Flex pens, and with most Flex pens, you kind of have to tune your materials. The paper has to be just right. The ink has to be just right. Has to be a nice flowing ink. Whereas with this one, I don't encounter those problems. So this pen is kind of worry-free. I know that if I'm doing a demo, that it's just going to work every single time, and I'm not going to experience any problems with it. So really, one of the main reasons why I use it so much is because it's so reliable. The second reason, look, it is a flex pen, and if you know my channel at all, which since you're watching, you probably do, you know how much I enjoy line variation. The good thing about this pen is that the line variation on it isn't flashy. It doesn't draw attention to itself. It has a nice balance of line variation with just the right amount of pressure. With a lot of flex pens, there's a tendency to go overboard with flex and make the lines decorative. With this pen, it doesn't really happen. So when you're doing a drawing that's just about the image, just about the drawing, you're not trying to emphasize line quality. I think this pen is a perfect fit. Reason number three is that it actually writes a little bit on the dry side, drier than some of the other Pilot Flex pens, which is good for demos. So if you're doing a demo, you're putting down hatching. In a demo, especially a live demo, you don't have time to wait for things to dry. You just need to layer over it, again, very, very quickly. And the slight dryness of this pen really helps with demonstrations. And then lastly is the adjusting mechanism. So if you guys are familiar with this pen, it has a little ring here that allows the pen to go from soft, and if I turn the wheel here, this little bar goes up and it makes the pen harder. Now, it's advertised as controlling the flex of the nib, but what it really does is control the flow. So it goes from a pen that's a little bit on the dry side, but still, you know, it's a flex pen. It writes fairly wet, to something that writes really, really dry. Now, the initial reasons behind this design is to allow this pen to write on all kinds of paper, higher quality paper for wetter writing, and then cheap printing paper, drier. But in effect, what this does is it allows you to control the flow of the ink, so you can put down juicier, wetter lines and really light, dry lines. This allows me in a demo to use a single pen. So if I want to put down wet lines, I can do it. I don't need to switch pens. I don't need to fill two pens with inks. When I'm doing a demo, I can use this one. So if I was going to have any one pen the rest of my life, it would be this one, because this is actually several pens in one. Besides that, it's a joy to use. It's easy to clean, so it's a cartridge converter. It pops out. I can flush it really easily. It has good ink capacity with this Con 70 converter. The ergonomics are fantastic, as they are with all Pilot pens. Pilot does a fantastic job designing their pens. It posts securely. It's a beautiful pen. It's a little bit on the expensive side, but for me, the price is completely justified. This is a pen that has been on my desk all year long, ever since I bought it, and is the one I usually reach for when I'm doing demonstrations. And look, just for regular everyday drawing, it's also fantastic. So this is the Pilot Justus 95. I would say this is actually the pen of the year. I know I'm starting with it, maybe it should be last, but this has been my favorite purchase this year. Okay, this is the Pilot Justus 95. Okay, let's talk about this pen. This is a pocket pen. This is the Hongan M2. There's also an M1 version, which is also really nice, but I like the M2 for its design. And actually, when I bought both at the same time, this one ended up working a little better for whatever reason. This is a pocket pen that's just absolutely brilliantly designed. So those of you guys, again, that watch my channel, I have a number of videos on pocket pens, and one of my favorites is the Kaweco Sport. And this pen is actually very similar in size and shape to the Kaweco, but in many ways a lot better. So first of all, it features a more comfortable grip section, so it's easier to hold. The threads on it are smoother. The balance is slightly better depending on what Kaweco Sport model you have, whether it's plastic or the brass or the bronze version. One advantage of it is that it uses a number 5 nib, so it can be switched out with lots of other nibs. I've used it with flex nibs, but this pen has quickly replaced my Kaweco Sports as my kind of everyday carry pocket pen. So this is the pen that I use in my pocket journal. Here's my Lockbee pocket journal. It goes here and fits perfectly in this little journal, and has been my go-to pen all year long, ever since I bought it, for note-taking. So I usually carry this everywhere. I don't really use it for drawing all that much, though I have drawn with it, and the drawing experience has been excellent. It has a little bit of flex to it, but I think The main reason why I use it is because of its nib, and this is actually something that's surprising. I often review Chinese pens, and something that's sort of consistent in most of my pen reviews is that I praise the pen body, I praise the design, and then I tell you immediately switch nibs. You use the number 5 or number 6 nib, you can get a better nib for it, right? Why? Because usually Chinese pens, the nibs tend to be on the scratchier side. The feeds tend to be a little bit drier. With Hongan, the brand itself, actually, for some reason, the pens are actually fairly juicy. The nibs are fairly smooth. I haven't experienced any problems with Hongan nibs, and I'm going to be reviewing these two Hongan pens. That's coming soon. I'm already in the process of making this review. And both these pens are actually really nice, juicy writers with the original nibs in them. So that's been kind of a pleasant recent development. So this is the Hongan M2. What else can I say about this? Look, everything about this pen is really well built. This is an aluminum pen. The threading is nice. It has a high quality converter. Has fairly decent ink capacity for a pocket pen, and it's just been a pleasure to use. And I found myself, even though I love the Kaweco Sports, I love their design, the Kaweco Brass has been one of my favorite pens, but I find myself reaching for this one over and over again. Again, it's just a pleasure to use, to hold, to write with, and unfortunately my Kaweco Sports don't get nearly as much use anymore because of this little Hongan M2. So this is my second favorite pen of 2024. Okay, let's talk about this pen. This is the Platinum 3776 Soft Fine. This is another pen that I bought to make a video of. So one thing I was curious about is how this pen compared with the really excellent Pilot Custom 74 Soft Fine. These are pens that are kind of in the same price category. They both feature a soft fine nib. They're both highly praised, and since I had all 5 Pilot Flex pens, I wanted to see how this compared. So I bought it specifically to make a comparison video and fell in love with it. Now, unlike the Pilot Custom 74, which is sort of a all-purpose pen, great for sketching, also great for finished work, fantastic line variation. It's a fantastic pen that I've reviewed in detail previously. This pen is a little bit of a specialist, and when I first made my comparison, it actually didn't work very well. So I liked the way it wrote, I liked the way it performed, but it had a tendency to skip. It had a tendency to dry out, and the reason for that was that this pen really requires just the right kind of paper, just the right kind of ink to work really well. But once you have those things tuned in, you figured out what inks work well with it, what inks don't, then it performs really, really well. So it's a little bit of a persnickety pen, and it's actually a very different product than the Pilot Custom 74, which again is a generalist. This pen is specifically for really highly detailed work where you need a little bit of flex, but not a lot. So this is a good substitute for those of you out there that enjoy working with crow nibs, those little fine, I don't know if I have any here. Okay, I never have the right material in front of me when I need it. Little crow nib, or those people that enjoy micron pens like the .05, right? Those of you guys that work really small, you like detail, but the thing that's missing from felt tips, not from crow nibs, but from felt tips, is the ability to vary the line, and this pen has it. Do I use it often? No, I don't use it often. It's not a generalist pen. It's not something I reach for when I'm doing a demo. Again, it has to be filled with just the right ink. I have to have just the right paper for it. So it's used for finished work when I need to do a little tiny sketch or a more finished drawing. So it hasn't really entered heavy rotation. Why? Because I haven't had that specific need for it, but this fulfills a specific role in my collection that just about no other pen does. Now, the Pilot Justus 95 is capable in the hard mode of writing really, really fine. This pen goes finer. Now, I know Platinum offers an XX nib, so an even finer nib. I don't know how fine that nib goes, but this is absolutely the finest writing nib in my collection, and it has flex. So those are guys that are looking for like a needlepoint nib that performs really well. This is the pen for you. And then look, the ergonomics are pretty good. The threads here, the step up here is not ideal. I think the Pilot ergonomics are a little better, but look perfectly fine. It posts, it has a really high quality converter in it, and this is one of the more affordable gold nibs that you can get right now. So this pen probably at this current time runs maybe a little bit over $100. You can buy it directly from Japan. One of the cheapest, more affordable gold nibs you can get. So this is the Pilot 3776 Soft Fine, a specialist pen, not for everyday use, for fulfilling a specific task, but for that task, it does it extremely well. And by the way, that slip and seal mechanism, it works great. So I had this pen inked for several months, and it writes perfectly, just right out of the box. So it actually makes it really good for your waterproof inks. So if you need a pen that seals up perfectly well and is guaranteed to start writing, and usually with waterproof inks you need to flush them out every couple of weeks. Not this one. This one I had inked with carbon ink. I've had it inked with Noodler's Gray. Works perfectly fine, so no clogging issues whatsoever. So the Pilot 3776, sorry, Pilot, the Platinum Century 3776 in the Soft Fine. So as I see it, there are essentially two categories of pens. You have pens with special nibs in them that are designed specifically for that pen. So this is a specialist pen, right? It's designed specifically to work with this nib. The Justus 95 obviously is a specialist pen with a special nib that's designed for this pen body. And then you have another category which I call the pen holder, the nib holder. And these are pens with really high quality bodies that feature good ergonomics, ink capacity, but have the extra advantage of having a nib that is a standard size, either a number 5 or a number 6, that can be switched out with lots of other nib options. And then it has the added benefit that the nibs are easy to pull out. Right, so some pens have number 5, number 6 nibs, but they're just a big pain in the butt to pull out. You need either rubber grip or even pliers, which could potentially damage the pen. These nib holders, the nib just pulls out. They have a friction fit nib, so you can switch out nibs really easily. And that's the second category of pens that I tend to look for and tend to buy. And these pens, actually, even though they're slightly frivolous purchases, are just that. They're high quality nib holders. I've had a number of different nibs in this Franklin Christoph. This one constantly goes through heavy rotation with number 5 nibs. So I always have number 5 and number 6 holding nib pens around. This is another really good option. This is the Asvine P36. It's a piston filler. It holds a number 6 size nib. And this pen actually out of the box is already excellent because it comes either with an Asvine nib, which is pretty good, but you can also buy it with a high quality Bock nib for just a few dollars. What else can I say about this pen? Look, the pen body is absolutely excellent. I'm not going to talk about the nib because I actually don't have the original nib in this pen at the moment. But this pen has absolutely perfect ergonomics. So it has this really comfortable hourglass section, which has, I don't know if it has a little bit of texturing to it, has some kind of like micro knurling on it. You can kind of hear it a little bit. The threading is really soft, low profile. The balance is great. Obviously it's a piston filler with really good ink capacity. And then again, the nib and feed pull out and I can put in all different kinds of nibs into it. Right now it houses a number 6 Ultraflex nib from Fountain Pen Revolution, but it's my go-to pen recently for any kind of number 6 nib. Fude nibs, flex nibs, what else? Regular nibs, of course. This pen has been kind of a constant companion in my larger sketching kit. So those of you guys that watch my videos, one of my more popular videos was a description of all the items in this sketching kit. And one of those items are my 4, sometimes 5 TWSBI Ecos, which I use kind of for the same reason, right? They're piston fillers, they've got great ergonomics, these are fantastic pens. But the disadvantage of these is that they use a non-standard size nib. They use a number 4 nib. So, these are nibs that are a little bit hard to purchase separately. You can buy, by the way, TWSBI Eco nibs from fpnibs.com in Spain. You have to pay for shipping, and just about nowhere else, though I think you can buy entire housing units, if I'm not mistaken. Anyway, These Ecos use a non-standard number 4 size nib. This uses a number 6 nib, which is much more commonly available. So I can go online and buy a bunch of number 6 nibs really easily. And if I was going to, for some reason, replace my TWSBI Ecos, which might happen because, after a couple of years of use, some of them are starting to crack a little bit. They're still perfectly functional. This one feels like a little more of a sturdy option. I would probably use this pen instead. So I'd buy 4 or 5 of these and have different nibs in them and put them in my sketching case. Now this pen is a little bit wider, a little bit heavier, and I might not be able to fit all of them, as many pens, into this case. So that's something to consider. And by the way, this year I purchased 2 other Asvine pens, the excellent V200. This is the V200, and this one is the V126, if I'm not mistaken. Both these are vac fillers, and also absolutely excellent pens with their original nib, or they also, this one doesn't. This one I think still comes only with the original Asvine nib. The V200 comes with a Bach nib. These are also excellent. Why don't I use them quite as much? Well, the V200, excellent pen. It's a little bit less comfortable to hold than the P36, a little bit longer. This heavy all metal knob is kind of heavy. It makes the pen back heavy towards the back. So this pen is just not quite as comfortable. And I would say the same thing with the V126, though I really like this pen a lot. It's just not quite as comfortable to hold as this hourglass grip section of the P36. So if you're looking for an excellent nib holder, a pen that uses is capable of using lots and lots of different kinds of nibs, this I think is the go-to. It runs about $40. You can buy a bunch of them if you want, and so far this pen has been in very, very heavy rotation. It's traveled with me, and again, is my go-to pen, along with this Franklin Christoph, which is a little more expensive. This is a pen that I tend not to take out on the road. This one I do. This one goes in my case, and again, this is a pen that sort of fulfills all the needs of an excellent nib holder that can be used with lots of different nibs. The Asvine P36. The last pen on the Best of 2024 list is here for slightly personal reasons, though it is a really excellent pen in itself. This is the Koo Sport V16, a vintage pen from the 1970s. Now, I originally purchased this pen because of this pen. This is the Koo Sport piston filler that was released earlier this year, and it's an excellent pen featuring a piston filling mechanism, but with a rather lackluster gold-plated steel nib, the same steel nibs that Kaweco puts in all their Koo Sports, which are a little bit dry, a little bit scratchy. So this is a fantastic pen, and I immediately switched out the original nib with a vintage gold option, which is one of the reasons why these Kaweco Sports are great. They fit all different kinds of vintage nibs. But it made me curious about the old vintage sports that this pen was inspired by, specifically the Kaweco Sport 12. Now, when I tried to acquire one, I found that they're actually fairly rare, at least in the US. You are able to buy them on eBay Germany, you lucky people in Germany, but they're really hard to find in the US. What is really commonly available are these V16 Sports, often as sets. So they come in these little cases, and where did the little pencil go? Okay, I don't know where the pencil went. Ah, here's the little pencil. And the pencil is actually also really excellent, so it comes in these little sets. And these are readily available on eBay. They're not that expensive for a vintage gold nib pen, and it turned out to be a really fantastic pen. To my mind, it's a little more slender and actually more elegant looking than these somewhat clunky Kaweco Sports. But most importantly, it turned out to be an absolutely fantastic writer with a semi-flex gold nib in it. The ink capacity is actually probably smaller than this Kaweco piston filler, which is not great, but look, these are pocket pens. They're not designed for long usage. The personal reason behind it, it's a fantastic pen. It fulfills all the practical reasons that I was seeking. But I bought this for my 50th birthday, and I wanted something from the 70s, something close to my birth date, and this pen fits the bill. So, a little bit of a personal reason, a little bit of a frivolous reason for purchasing this pen. But again, it turned out to be a fantastic writer. And really, the reason why I prefer to buy pens from the 50s, 60s, and 70s is because they tend to be a little bit sturdier. They tend to be made from more modern materials. So this one has a silicone seal in the piston as opposed to the cork, which tends to degrade and need to be replaced. A lot of people that buy vintage pens tend to gravitate towards what's called the golden era of fountain pen manufacture. That'd be 1910 to, I don't know, 1930 something. And those pens are fantastic, but they tend to be a little bit on the fragile side. Right? They're made with either celluloid or ebonite. And these are pens, while they're fantastic, are just not for regular use. They're for taking out, inking a little bit, and then putting right back into their case. Whereas I find that these pens for the 70s, and by the way, there's other options from the 70s. This is a pen that I bought last year, I think. This is the Pilot Elite. So kind of a similar pocket pen with a hooded nib. Right? This is a fantastic pen. If you guys are looking for a vintage gold option, this is one of the more affordable options. This is a pen that I don't hesitate taking absolutely everywhere. And the same thing with this. Right? I don't hesitate taking it places, putting it in my case. It's not a pen that's horribly expensive or difficult to replace. So I think this strikes a really nice balance between vintage, the excellent performance of vintage, the vintage feel, the fact that I've got this kind of personal connection with it because we have similar birth dates, but also is for practical use. So this is a pen that I take out sketching all the time, even though it's a vintage pen. So this is the Kaweco Sport V16. This is a pen that I highly recommend, and again, you can buy it in a set. Sometimes it comes with a ballpoint. Don't buy the ballpoint. There's no reason to buy a ballpoint pen these days. But this little pencil, I think, is really useful for sketching. So it's a useful little item. And again, it comes with this little cute case. I hope all of you enjoyed this best of 2024 list. This is one of the few videos that I've made without a script, a little bit off the cuff, so sorry if I'm rambling a little bit. But lastly, I want to thank all of you guys for watching my channel this year. I really appreciate your support, and I look forward to making more content. More art material reviews, more drawing instruction, and definitely more fountain pen reviews. So these are the next two pens I'm going to be reviewing. These are two pens made by Hongan, which I think are pretty excellent and worth talking about. So once again, thanks for watching, and see you back in my messy studio next year. Bye-bye.